going to do here. Okay, everyone ready? Good morning, everybody. And I am so proud to be joined by my colleagues, and it's a beautiful day. And I think that's one of the most beautiful sights. And I was going to say that the beauty of this building can't even be defaced by the ugliness of the recent ruling in Citizens United.
You have gotten under the cover here into the very key question. Should the United States government be restricting free political speech? That's what you're arguing, isn't it?
It absolutely is right on point. Should the government be able to ban political speech?
Before Citizens United, there was a huge imbalance in the political playing field that tilted heavily to the left.
In a single decision,
the Supreme Court overturned decades of precedents,
reversed a century-old legal standard,
and a federal law that's been the cornerstone of the nation's campaign finance system for 100 years.
What made Citizens United remarkable was that it originally went to court on a fairly narrow front and was actually arguing a pretty narrow case.
The case started out as a simple challenge. The issue was whether the provisions of BICRA relating to so-called issue ads could constitutionally be applied to a full-length feature film about then presidential candidate Hillary Clinton.
Most important office in our country. They wanted to say something about her qualifications and her character and whether she should be president. And the federal government was going to prevent that film from being broadcast.
Frankly, I don't think that the Congress thought about documentary films when they passed the statute. We thought that was wrong, and consequently we went to court to do that.
To censor an expression of speech about a political candidate. Citizens United felt that they had to do something in order to be able to express themselves during an election.
The Chief Justice came back and said, you know, we don't think you've asked for a broad enough understanding. We'd like you to go back, rewrite your case, come back in and tell us what you think the fullest explanation of free speech would be.
It's a monumental victory for Citizens United, and more importantly for the First Amendment and the fundamental rights of people to participate in the political process and the marketplace of ideas.
This is a very, very sad day for American democracy. And this is a very radical decision that came out of the Supreme Court of the United States, a court that said they respected precedent.
The proverbial dog chasing its tail. The more you move in the direction of McCain-Feingold, the more you're going to run up against this question of essentially limiting free speech, specifically within the political process.
The ruling will be remembered as a low moment for the court for a very long time into the future. Today, my colleagues and I are introducing the Disclose Act, because democracy is strengthened by casting light on spending in elections.
It's no coincidence that Chuck Schumer, who had just been chairman of the Democrat Senate Campaign Committee, and Chris Van Hollen, who was then chairman of the Democrat House Campaign Committee, were the sponsors of this bill. They saw conservatives and people who believed in free markets and free people starting to get involved in the process and giving to organizations. And there was, I think, partly an effort to intimidate corporate donors and small business owners and others from engaging in the political process.
The more you liberate individuals, speaking through corporations or otherwise, to speak in the political process, you open up the process and you prevent incumbents and the left, which has a monopoly on things like the New York Times and so forth, from dominating the political process. And I guess that's why they don't like it.
In short, there are now no checks on the ability of corporations or unions or other giant aggregations of power to decide our elections. None. They will implant the legislators of their choice in every office, from president to head of the visiting nurse service.
MSNBC and CNN and the mainstream media, so-called mainstream media, hate this decision because it infringes on their desire to control the message.
On this election night, 2010,
the people of Pennsylvania have spoken, and they have delivered us a victory.
We have a big story to report tonight.
Tonight we can celebrate But tomorrow we start the hard work.
NBC News is projecting that Republicans have won control of the House of Representatives.
A second chance for Republicans to be what they said they were going to be not so long ago.
We've come to take our government back.
The Citizens United versus FEC ruling helped close the gap that the left had opened up in the political process by virtue of the way McCain-Feingold was being implemented. The ruling came down. It opened the process up and opened the playing field up to voices from the right, more free enterprise-oriented, less government-oriented voices to come into the process.
President Obama is going to be in the fight of his political life in 2012. And the Citizens United decision, he knows, will make that re-election even more difficult.
It's time to put strict limits on the contributions that lobbyists give to candidates for federal office, with all due deference to separation of powers. Last week, the Supreme Court reversed a century of law that I believe will open the floodgates for special interests, including foreign corporations, to spend without limit in our elections.
The justices of the Supreme Court were sitting as captive audiences. They had no warning that President Obama was going to speak out about it. When he did speak, he spoke inaccurately. He mischaracterized the decision, mischaracterized what the Supreme Court had done.
And it comes back to this morality play. Liberals believe big corporations are evil. The bigger the business in America, the more politically correct it is, and the more big government solutions they want.
Corporations are free to inject unregulated billions, absolutely unlimited money into the political system. If you are a regular person who's ever made a campaign donation before, forget about ever having to do that again. What's the point in individual people trying to influence politics with their donations if Exxon or some other company can quite literally match and therefore cancel out the combined donations of every single individual donor in the nation whenever it wants?
So their response was to demonize the decision, to misrepresent it, and in some cases to lie about what it said.
It gave people, not only individuals, but corporations and associations as well, the power to stand up and say enough in the political process. Enough is enough in Washington. We're going to make changes. And it had a huge impact immediately.
I don't think there are that many elections in my lifetime that I can think of as defining, and yet this was a defining election. And particularly a defining election in a non-presidential year.
I think it's maybe the most important case in history, because what that decision said is that individuals under the First Amendment cannot be inhibited, cannot be restrained, cannot be threatened, cannot be censored by the government when they wish to speak about elections and the political process. What could be more important than that?
I actually think that the Citizens United case is one of the best examples of a genuine strategy that I've seen in the years I've been in Washington. And it's really one of the most sophisticated, methodical, and serious strategies I've seen in my years in looking at government. I think Dave believed passionately that the heart of American liberty is the right of every citizen, whether you agree or disagree, to get up and be heard, to speak, to have space in politics.
Citizens United v. Federal Election Commission.
A Supreme Court ruling that may change politics in this country more dramatically than anything else this court has done in generations.
On the conservative side, we make conservative films. Okay, fair enough. That's free speech. We'll see how it all works out. Mr. Bossie, good to have you with us tonight. You know where you stand. I give you that.